says check back later still.
It does?
Yeah.
Okay.
For the qualifying field and the groupings aren't in either.
All right, here we go. All right, we are live on Madison.com, we hope. If not, you'll be watching this in replay, along with Jason Galloway and Dennis Semrau. Rob Hernandez here from the State Journal newsroom. And guys, it appears we have the preliminary playoff qualifier field. Depending on which browser we have, you've got it. Dennis, do you have it?
Yeah,
You've got it too. All right.
WIAA list up here.
All right, so we apologize for the technical difficulties. We hope to be with you just a bit earlier, but let's go right to the playoff field. And in Division One, the enrollment breakdown: Kimberly will be the smallest Division One school at 1,418 students, and they get in Division One. And obviously the largest will be the Milwaukee Pulaski Arts Reagan Co-op at 3,551. Looking at the qualifiers from the area: Sun Prairie, Middleton, Madison West, Janesville Craig, Verona, and Madison La Follette all in the field. And of course, WIAA releases the pairings here right at midnight, and boy, they're right on time. So kudos to Wade Lebecki and the crew up at WIAA offices, Todd Clark, Dave Anderson, for getting these out right as they said at 1:30. And I'm not sure we'll be on that long, but at 1:30 we're supposed to know the 8-team groupings. And guys, first of all, as you look at this field here, and we just like the rest of it, like everybody else, we've just had our first glimpse at it here. We knew the teams that were going to be in from the Big Eight, and Jason, I guess I'll start with you. You're new to this, so it may be a little bit hard to project who goes into the Big Eight bracket, but right now it looks like the 6 Big Eight schools might comprise one quadrant, and if that's the case, we could be seeing some rematches.
Yeah, that's I didn't know that was how this worked. I'm still learning, but we knew. I mean, no surprise that the 6 Big Eight teams are in Division One. We expected that. That would be interesting if they were all in the same grouping. We get a ton of rematches, and there were some good Big Eight games this year, though, so maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
No, I think it'll be competitive, but
Rob, one thing I noticed, we got 3 9-0 teams, so there could be 3 of your 4 number 1 seeds. Bayport, Milwaukee King, and Kimberly spread out.
Yeah.
So Middleton, the first thing that Coach Simon said after the game was, number 1 seed guys, if not number 1, we're number 2, we're hosting. That was his feelings on it. There are, it looks like 3 teams with 8-1 records.
Who do you see there, Denny?
Middleton, Oak Creek, and Fond du Lac,
Okay.
all 8-1 overall, 6-1. Whether you got an 8-1 with Middleton, that's the one right there because they're a non-conference. They're no non-conference games. So Kimberly was 7-0, and Milwaukee King was 6-0 in the regular season, and Bayport was 8-0 in their conferences. So you'd figure those 3 would be number 1 seeds. And then Middleton looks like they got a really good shot at 8-1 because they play 9 conference games. Nobody else matches up with that.
And
Yep.
and I'll just say, just to remind people, seeding is more important this year with you get home field until the
Right.
semifinals. So if Middleton can grab that number 1 seed, they won't have to leave home for the first 3 rounds.
Right, all the way to the state semifinals, and possibly because they have artificial turf field, they probably wouldn't host, but there may be more games at Middleton and Level 4.
They also get that advantage of 3 games on turf, which is what you get when you get to the state tournament. And some teams might have to adjust, 4 games on grass switching. They could have it 3, maybe all 5 if they can be lucky enough to get that far.
Well, and the only other thing, and we'll come back to Division One in a little bit here, but one other unbeaten conference champion, Milwaukee Marquette. And again, in the old days of the old seeding formula that the WIAA used, an unbeaten conference champ would get a lot of weight. Now, does Milwaukee Marquette go to the seeding meeting and say, we won the Greater Metro, a really tough conference? That's Arrowhead. No, Classic 8 is Arrowhead, but Greater Metro is not too shabby either, and so they may have a case there. The guys, before we go to Division 2, the one thing I wanted to point out is the fact that 2 of those 3 unbeaten teams you referenced, Kimberly and Bayport, are in the northern half of the state, and as we looked at the potential qualifiers here, we noticed that the very sparse number of schools in Division I north of, say, Portage. And if you draw the line across the state there and put dots above and below, it's going to be hard to keep Kimberly and Bayport in the same quadrant if that's what the WIAA chooses to do. And I'm not sure with this new system, and Dennis, maybe you can think back to last year, whether that makes a big difference or not to separate those unbeaten teams.
They haven't done it before. We've run into that in the South where we've had Monona Grove, for example. One year they had to play 3 straight unbeaten teams. So I don't.
Okay.
Again, they don't always seem to go on strength of conference either. So for Milwaukee Marquette.
Okay, so we'll come back to Division I a little bit because we want to get to some of these enrollment divisional breakdowns. Maybe we'll do that quick here as we go, and then circle back and talk about some more about each of these divisions, especially the ones that involve the Badger, the Big 8, the Capital Conference. Division II, the largest school in the state is Germantown at 1,409. The smallest school is Greendale at 932. And that means missing by 1 of getting into Division II, the Monona Grove Silver Eagles, after tonight's heartbreaking loss in overtime to Milton. The Silver Eagles go into Division III, which is where they were a year ago when they won the state championship, and over Greendale. And so you split the 2 state finalists from a year ago. One goes up, Greendale at 932. Monona Grove goes down at 907, and that's an interesting divisional break. Teams from the area in Division II, and last year there weren't many. It doesn't appear there's a whole lot this year either. Waunakee, Oregon, Stoughton, Milton, DeForest, those are the ones. And last year we had Waunakee and DeForest, Denny, and not much beyond that. But Stoughton, Oregon, and Milton.
I believe Fort Atkinson last year.
I believe yeah. So a couple more teams, but it'll be interesting to see how those geographical quadrants are drawn up. And again, it's Division II has been one of those divisions in the Madison area where we just haven't seen a whole lot of local teams assigned. Division III is usually a different story, and as we mentioned, Monona Grove, your largest team, at 907. The smallest team, Walworth Bigfoot. In Division III, the Chiefs have typically been a Division IV school, and tonight they saw their 53-game conference winning streak come to an end at the hands of Broadhead Judah. And to make matters potentially worse.
What a bad night.
Yeah, what a bad night
for
Greg Enns, the first-year coach. Yeah.
Welcome.
So they're going Division III, and they are the smallest school at 528. So 528 to 907. One of the concerns in football is you get into that Division III, and that's a pretty broad enrollment range there, Dennis and Jason. Yeah. It could make for some mismatches.
Yeah, it definitely could. I mean, if you're Bigfoot, you've got to be. I mean, they got that conference winning streak going. They lose, and then you can't. You're 1 spot away. That's it. And by enrollment of 3, the difference there is only 3 students.
That's right. It is
that's
over Ellsworth.
Got to be looking at that.
And you've got some pretty good local teams up there in the top 10. Monona Grove, Monroe Barneveld, Reedsburg. Right there, all teams.
You're right.
There's a team to keep an eye on. Lacrosse Logan last year. They won convincingly tonight to finish the regular season 9-0.
Yeah, and to go down the list even further, McFarland gets in Division III. Jefferson and Albany, which shared the Rock Valley North title, they get in at 7-2 and 6-3 respectively. And then, of course, Walworth Bigfoot, the smallest school in the division. We'll come back to Division III in a little bit. The largest school in Division IV, Ellsworth. Ellsworth comes in with 525 students, and again, not quite as significant an enrollment range here, 345. The smallest school, Manitowoc Roncalli. Some of the area schools in Division IV, Adams Friendship out of the South Central Conference, Lodi out of the Capital North, River Valley, Platteville, Broadhead Judah, Watoma, Columbus, Clinton, Marshall. That would be Marshall will be the last one in Division III, and they get in at 361 students. So one of the smaller schools. I'm sorry, in Division IV, Marshall, one of the smaller schools. That enrollment range from 4 to 5 fell. 345 in Roncalli gets up to Division IV, and Cedar Grove, Belgium, your largest school in Division 5 with 339. And they've caused problems, Dennis, for area teams in the past, specifically the Lancaster Flying Arrows. So it'll be interesting to see how far Lancaster has to go to before they would meet Cedar Grove, Belgium. But 339, your largest school in Division 5. The smallest school, Colfax, at 245. The Deerfield Demons out of the Trailways Large, the champion there, gets in at 243. And they are the largest school in Division 6, so 2 student difference between 5 and 6. And I think, guys, for Deerfield, that's a welcome sight there because they do play in a smaller conference generally. The Trailways Large, mostly Division 6 schools. And to have to go up against the Lancasters of the world might have been a little bit too much to chew, or a little bit too much to bite off.
Yeah, Coach Jim Brown's had Deerfield in state finals before, and this is the best. They've had best route since their state appearance.
And as we look at that Division 5, Poynette in Division 5, Waterloo, Cambridge. Cambridge knocked off Waterloo in convincing fashion tonight to close out the Capital South Conference title. Hardyville out of the Trailways Large, and that's it. Boy, there aren't a whole lot of schools out of our area, Dennis. That's kind of different.
Yeah, Lancaster's there. That's what we talked about from day one. 3 straight runner-up finishes. They want to finish it this year.
Yeah. I think Poynette can make a big run too. I mean, they kind of had hopes of a conference title going to that Lodi game last week and couldn't get it done there. But I think they're a team that instead of being in Division 5 instead of Division 4, I think they could go a ways.
All right, as we continue on, the Deerfield Demons, we mentioned the largest school in Division 6 at 243 students, and the divisional breakdown there. Independence Gilmanton gets in at 6-1 in conference in the Dairyland, 6-3 overall at 194. The difference between 194 and 191, an area team, the largest school in Division 7, that's New Lisbon. New Lisbon and DeSoto gets in tonight. We wondered in our live chat today, Dennis. I didn't think DeSoto was going to knock off North Crawford, but they get in at 3-3 and 4-5 overall. So the DeSoto Pirates, with a proud playoff history, they get in as the second largest Division 7 school. But quickly going back to Division 6, a lot of area teams here. Markesan out of the Trailways Large, Necedah, Cuba City, and Darlington, Mineral Point, Iowa Grant, Oshkosh Lourdes out of the Trailways Large, plays a lot of our area schools, Kickapoo Lafarge, and Peck Argyle is the last one at 204. There was some thought that maybe Peck Argyle could drop into 7, but I think with a lot of Cloverwood teams, Travis Wilson at WizSports.net pointing out that 3 Cloverwood conference teams got in at 4 and 5. And before we went on the air, we were talking about the fact that Madison Memorial had a golden opportunity tonight with an upset win over Verona to get to 4 and 5. As it turns out, they won't do it, and so the Big 8 will just get the 6 schools. But because of the 3 Cloverwoods getting in, smaller schools pushing up that enrollment range, and so Peck Argyle stays in Division 6. We'll come back and talk about this, but a number of, and we'll come back and pick out some of the unbeatens, but Ozaki unbeaten in Division 6, Fond du Lac St. Mary Springs unbeaten, Lake Country Lutheran unbeaten, Athens out of the Cloverwood unbeaten. Darlington has the 1 loss overall. They were unbeaten in conference play. They were the state runner-up a year ago, and they may have to run into a Lake Country Lutheran or a Fond du Lac Springs, or both, if depending on who gets assigned where. I don't know if you can split up all those unbeatens geographically. Athens would probably go to the north and west, Fond du Lac Springs to the north and east, possibly. We should also mention Edgar, an unbeaten too, so they may take one of those northern tier spots. But boy, all of a sudden that one non-conference loss, even though we say that doesn't really affect things come playoff time, it might for the Darlington Redbirds because they may be grouped with someone because of that 1 loss that's unbeaten.
Yeah, 10 teams unbeaten in conference play, so you can't separate all of them. You're going to have a few of them, 2 or 3 in each division at least, and that's probably going to be, again, a problem for them.
And looking at Division 7, this is usually where we see the greatest concentration of area teams just because of the dominance of the Six Rivers Conference. But New Lisbon, the largest school, DeSoto, also in the field in Division 7. You've got Cashton and Bangor out of the Scenic Bluffs, Fall River out of the Trailways Small, North Crawford out of the Ridge and Valley, Rio out of the Trailways Small, Williams Bay back in the playoffs for the first time in a while, in the Trailways Small. Hillsboro, out of the Scenic Bluffs, Blackhawk, Potosi, Shullsburg, Belmont, Ithaca, and Weston. Excuse me, Weston and Belmont, the smallest schools in the 224 school playoffs at 91 students apiece, as Belmont loses tonight to Potosi. Potosi wins the conference title outright in the Six Rivers, and typically that's a precursor to some good postseason success, Dennis.
Oh, it is. You look at the Six Rivers teams we talked all year long, potential at one point for four-way tie for the title, which Potosi made a moot point tonight. But I love that 91, 96 for Shullsburg, 104 for Ithaca, and Potosi 110, Blackhawk 111. There you go, six smallest schools are all ours, guys.
Yeah.
Got to root for the little guys, underdogs.
All right, let's as we go back up to the top, and let me see here. If one of you guys could just keep another window open just to see if they happen to group these quicker than they were hoping.
Yeah.
And excuse me here. So let's play WIAA staff, and that's a dangerous thing with the three of us, but. You've got 6 Big 8 teams. Each division has 32 teams, so 4 quadrants of 8, and that's what will be seeded tomorrow by the coaches at 11 a.m. You've got, you would think, 6 Big 8 conference teams in one grouping. Who do you add?
Though in the past, Janesville School has been in another bracket.
But that's when they separated. Now I don't know if you can go back beyond last year, Dennis, to try to read into what the WIAA might do. And there was a lot of consternation last year with so many Big 8 teams in one grouping, but that's kind of the nature of the beast. It's
if there was one to split off, that would be the one. Craig would be the one to split off. But I agree with you, Rob. I think that all 6 are probably going to be in the same one.
And I believe last year, Mukwonago was with the Big 8 teams, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
I think they played Madison LaFollette in the first round last year, and they're back in it again this year. So.
Danny, can you go to last year's bracket and just have that up on your screen for these divisions and just sort of maybe give us a glimpse of what they did last year?
There you go.
With only 1 year to draw on, with the coaches seeding the playoffs, I think that's where it gets kind of muddled. And I think it probably gives us an opportunity to touch on a critical point, is that with all the parity, especially in our area here this year, with all the conference races, we've talked about this in our prep rallies and in our stories down the stretch here, with so much going on as far as battles for conference races in week 9, it's going to be awfully difficult to seed these things in a I guess a sensible manner compared to last year. And last year the cream kind of rose to the top, and you had a little bit of ammunition to go with. But I guess I would look at and let's go Division 1. We've got, if you have the 6 Big 8 teams in one grouping, I would think that Lake Geneva Badger would come over because of their proximity to Janesville.
I've got who was in it last year.
Okay.
Milwaukee, Hamilton, Mukwonago, and Oconomowoc.
Okay.
We're grouped with 5 Big 8 teams.
5 Big 8 teams.
And now
so
we get 6 this year.
Right.
Mukwonago's in again. Between the other two, I'm not sure.
I think what'll happen, I'd be surprised. I'll be interested to see Hamilton's in it again,
yeah.
And I'll be curious to see who they bring over, because you could bring just about anybody over from the city and fill out that grouping. I thought that the one Milwaukee school last year was a little bit of an odd assignment. Oconomowoc not qualifying this year, I think, hurts the Big 8, because that was a winnable game for whoever drew them, but they just didn't get to playoff status. So I think Badger, and then I would think Mukwonago at 4-3, 6-3. Another one that I saw in that grouping, Muskego at 5-2, 7-2. Again, I think they're going to try to balance, you would hope, the assignments based on records, so that as people start to digest the brackets once they come out, they don't start looking at these, especially these 3 that'll be heavy on Milwaukee/Madison area schools, that they don't have too many first or second place teams. And I
mean, if they move Janesville and Badger out of the group, then I'm not sure they would, who would they bring in? It would be a little bit of an odd match to bring 3 other teams in without having those two in.
And
So I think I agree with what you're saying there.
So let's assume then that
I remember a few years ago, Sun Prairie played Arrowhead over at Arrowhead.
right.
And
Well, that's the
Arrowhead's
beauty of
got-
this.
and Arrowhead's got 2 losses in conference
Yeah.
overall this year, so.
And they could bring Arrowhead this way. There's no question about it. But I think they'll try to stick to history. They'll try to stick to geography, and then let those teams in that again that geographical representation. They finally have the opportunity to do it like they do it for all the other sports with keeping conferences together in brackets. And so if they do that, guys, let's just say that we've got the 6 Big 8 teams, Badger and let's say McWanago. How do you seed them?
I think Middleton would obviously be the number 1 seed
Yep.
in that situation, and then you have I think Madison LaFollette would be the number 2 seed. Then, do you think you go McWanago there, or do you go another Big 8 team? What do you think, Rob?
If it's McWanago, I think.
It's a 4-3 conference.
But it's a great conference. I mean, it's the conference.
6-3 overall, and like you said, it's a great conference. So I don't know.
I think again, and this is where I'll be watching curiously because there's a couple of things that are going to tell me whether the coaches are doing their homework or not. And I listened on the way over here to Guy Kopp at Cuba City on the radio talk about the situation in Division 6 where I mentioned Lake Country Lutheran, which was a Division 7 state semifinalist last year against Blackhawk, could wind up in the same grouping as Darlington. And then how do you give Darlington, a state runner-up a year ago, whose only loss was to a state runner-up from a year ago in non-conference play, the 2 seed behind an unbeaten? And he, that's where he thinks that coaches might, quote-unquote, gang up.
Yeah.
Especially if Lake Country gets moved into a bracket with the SWAL teams. I wonder if the Big 8 will try to gang up or vote along conference lines. But that's one thing that in the whole seeding process across all sports that when they gave the coaches the opportunity to seed, that was the one thing you hoped wouldn't come into it, and I guess I would maintain that hope here for football.
I've got 2 questions for you guys, since you guys have been doing this longer than me. Would when they're having these seeding meetings, do they take into account something like Verona has won their last 6 games in a row?
Yes, now they do.
And number 2, will they take into account that Janesville Cray doesn't have their starting quarterback?
And that is a great question because we were talking about that after the Verona's win the night among the parents. And I said, this is the opportunity because in basketball they do that every year, Dennis. Someone blows out a knee and they get hurt. They get that affects the seed.
Yeah, that's something that they never used to do, which is why the last couple of years now, it's we're still kind of treading water on what they're going to do when the coaches all get together. I mean, it used to be, it didn't matter what conference you're in. Didn't matter. I mean, the year that Sun Prairie lost their quarterback, boy, they really got penalized in the last game because they ended up a 3-way, what was it, a 3-way tie for the conference title?
Right.
And that was, if you're an unbeaten champ, it didn't matter who you played or whatever, you were an unbeaten champ.
Right.
So, Milwaukee School, Milwaukee Hamilton unbeaten, hey, they got the number 1 seed. And we're like, they didn't meet the level of competition. So, but I think now you got the coaches together. They have to come in. It depends, again, how well they do their homework. Are they following? Are they, and Dave will sell, hey, we won 6 in a row. We beat some good teams in conference. And our league is, we think our league is strong this year. But when the Big 8 doesn't play non-conference games, though, how strong are they?
Yeah, that's true, and I think that's where McWanago gets elevated because they do play a couple non-conference games. They schedule tough. The conference is very brutal.
That'll be their selling points.
And I would hope that the other, especially if they're in a room full of Big 8 coaches, that they would respect that. Now, if Badgers in that room at 4-3 and 4-5 overall, I think they would almost expect to battle Madison West for that 8th seed.
Yep. Yeah,
but
that's what I'd
it's
go
that middle part. I mean, and you look at, technically Madison LaFollette should be seated ahead of Verona because they have a better record. But Verona took them apart late in the season. Technically, Sun Prairie should have an argument that, they beat Middleton, the only team that beat Middleton. And could they be seated ahead of Verona? And I'd love to be a fly on the wall at that seating meeting because, it could be, some of the conversations, and that one in particular, could shape future seating meetings and the whole concept of coaches seating the football playoffs because there are so many of these different dynamics that aren't in other sports where you're dealing with 9 games, and in the Big 8, it's a locked schedule.
Here's the question: is 2 hours going to be enough? for them to
Yeah.
decide this.
Well, it's going to have to be.
Yeah, exactly.
I
It
think
will,
it's an
but
interesting dynamic that they have the coaches decide the seeds.
Well, they
Um,
begged it. I mean, every other sport has that. Every other team sport has it, and so I think it was overdue in coming to football, and especially in this situation, I like it because I just if you had left this to the computer the way the WI used to
that's
do
true.
it,
Yeah.
with Janesville Craig would have looked like a world beater, and for 3/4 of the season they were.
they were. But tonight, what I saw, I mean, they were just
Decimated.
totally outmatched.
Yeah, so we'll stay tuned and keep an eye out for that.
I would seed of the 6 and 3 Big 8 teams. I would seed Verona the highest, just because they've looked so good the second half of the year.
And we'll see where it takes them. And again, it's you got Kimberly in there. It was Kimberly. What division last year, Dev or Dennis?
Kimberly. Oh, let me see here.
Did they fall into two?
One.
I should know this off the top of my head. Weren't they
They're
the?
not one.
Nope, they were not in one.
I should have my list of.
So it must have been in 2.
Yep, Kimberly state champion in 2. Is that what I saw? Go back one screen there, Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah, they defeated Oshkosh North last year.
Yep. So.
51 to 10.
Yep. And Arrowhead defeated Franklin.
Division 1.
Franklin also in Division 1. Franklin, another team in the old system that a lot of the area teams had to go through to get to state when they moved up to Division 1. So, boy, I tell you, it's gonna be interesting. I can't wait for the and again, we may not be here with you when the groupings come out, but that'll be one you want to keep an eye on. Division 2, Dennis, how do you sort them out, especially with that Monona Grove dropping and Milton winning on the last week of the season?
Well, here we go. Greendale. Boom. There you go. There's your runner-up from last year, moving up to Division 2. Boy, I like the Forest. Again, shared a conference title. Milton MG shared a conference title. You have to look at how many teams are unbeaten in conference play. You got Superior at 7-0, Oshkosh North at 7-0, Menasha at 8-0, Merrill, and then Greendale. 5 teams in conference unbeaten. Is that enough to be number
Pull up
one
that
seeds?
D2 bracket once from last year. Last year, who did they have to bring in to?
They were in Division 3. What am I thinking?
Who in Division 2? I mean, there just weren't a whole lot of schools, and so I thought the local schools kind of got.
Yeah, looks like.
Yeah, we only had 3
Oshkosh.
last year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Oshkosh North, Watertown, Lacrosse Central, Holman.
Slinger. Yeah.
Was Logan in that group too? No,
Logan
just
was
Central.
in.
Logan was down at 3.
They were in 3 because they played Monona Grove last year.
So
So yeah, much different this year with 5.
yeah,
And it's interesting. It would have been interesting to see if Monona Grove was in Division 2, because then you kind of have to see Milton ahead of Monona Grove, don't you?
yeah. Oh
At
yeah.
that point, but
Yeah.
yeah.
After
It
tonight,
would have been
sure.
interesting to see how that went down, but
Well, you got all sorts of options here.
yeah, it's
Wilmot, which once upon a time, might come over this way. WI could send the D2 schools north. You've got what is it, the Mississippi Valley Conference with Holman, and I thought I saw one other MVC team there.
this is more interesting than Division 1 in terms of our local schools. I feel like because not all of these Radnor schools have played each other since they have it north and south.
Right.
Unlike the Big 8, it makes things a little more interesting. Like seeding. I'm not even sure if Milton and DeForest played this year, but
Well,
making decisions like
No.
that.
and here's the big one in Division 2. You've got a 9-0 Superior team that is supposed to is one of the best in the conference. And let me just see what the believe the X on the screen for those that are looking at the field at home are conference champions, and they do try to separate those out. So you count those up, and you figure out right away that that some divisions have their work cut out for them more than others.
Yeah, 10 conference champions in Division 2. That's pretty
Out of 32
pretty
teams.
large amount. There's only 7 in Division 1. looks like that's the most conference champions of any division. Well, Division 6 has a lot too. 10.
Yeah.
I think Division 6 has 10 as well. But yeah, it's interesting to think about when you're looking at trying to group these together.
But a lot of options there for the local schools with
Well,
the
10, at least 2 of those 10 were co. We know
Mhm.
Milton was a co, and we know Forest was a co.
Right. Watertown has come over here in the past, and again, you could go all the way from Watertown to La Crosse to Madison, draw a triangle, and that may
Wide
be
range, yeah.
Slinger also in Division 2 out of the same conference, but a little bit more towards the North Shore of Milwaukee, so they could go either north or south.
Yeah, they were grouped with our local schools last year.
Okay.
But that was when there were 5 spots. So.
Yeah, you could see at the Forest, say, going northwest toward La Crosse, and then the other schools staying this way, going south, and Oregon and Milton being together.
Yeah.
And look at Division 3 guys on the subject of conference champions. 4.
Interesting.
Across Logan, unbeaten, Plymouth.
They actually
Wisconsin Lutheran.
They actually left one out, I believe. Mount Horeb Barneveld shared. They do not have an X.
Yeah, there's your co.
So maybe 5 then.
Now, Dennis, question for you. Would that be an indication that these X's reflect the tiebreaker?
Yep, that would be my guess.
Ah.
That's correct, Rob, because DeForest beat Mount Horeb Barneveld, so that
And
they want the conferences.
Look at that, and
to-
Milton gets it because of the.
Monona Grove doesn't
Yep.
have an X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about that?
There it
So
is.
these are the schools that then would get the consideration for being the top of their bracket. If you did like the NC basketball tournament and assign them to different regions, you'd try to separate those 4 schools because they're they may not be unbeaten conference champions, but they're undisputed conference champions. They are the defined conference champs from those conferences.
Yeah.
SC Jefferson got it over Evansville, Albany.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's
And they're
significant.
right next to each other
So
in
that's-
the
So-
enrollment.
So you're saying in terms of seeding, that matters a lot.
Well, I think in terms of assignment, it matters a lot.
Assignment, yeah.
So what you're looking at here, the easy thing for the WIA to do, based on, and this is a more broad history, but you make La Crosse Logan the anchor of the Northwest sectional. You make Plymouth the Northeast, Wisconsin Lutheran the Southeast, and Jefferson the Southwest.
Correct. Yeah.
Pretty simple, right?
Yep.
We'll see if it plays
To
out
us,
that way.
to us anyway, right?
Yeah.
But then you make them your anchor, and then Dennis Jefferson, Coach Steve G walks into the seeding meeting and potentially could get like a 3 or 4 seed, right? I mean, look at that. I mean, because of the history of the Badger Conference,
Yeah.
as good as they've been, Mount Horeb Barneveld's been a semifinalist.
DeForest has been a finalist. It's been a few years.
Reedsburg's been a finalist.
State champ. Yeah.
So I mean, and they all have strong resumes this year. I mean, Reedsburg, maybe not as much as Monona Grove and Mount Horeb Barneveld.
If like we're saying, Verona was 6 in a row, deserves more consideration. Reedsburg got beat 2 in a row at the end.
That's true.
Lost 2 of their last 3 games.
Yep, and then you
Bounced
throw
back tonight, big time. Yeah, well, against Portage. So.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Division 4, 2, 4, 6, 7 conference champs. What's that?
Just going to mention one more thing on Division 3.
Sure.
Keep an eye on Monona Grove and Catholic Memorial gave them the best game last year in the playoffs,
Yeah.
and they're both in Division 3 again. If they were to get grouped together again,
Boy.
they may not be lucky enough to be playing in the round of 8 like they were last year, depending on how the seeding goes out. But
What did Catholic Memorial go in at last year record-wise there, Jason? 8-1.
8-1.
And they're a little bit down this year record-wise, well, by 1 game, 7-2.
I'm not saying they obviously wouldn't play in the first
How-
round or anything,
No.
but
They were
Let's
3rd round last year.
do a numbers count here. We got Monona Grove 1, Mount Horeb Barneveld 2, 3 for Reedsburg. I'm talking area teams. 4 with McFarland, 5, 6 Jefferson, Evansville, Albany, 7 with Bigfoot. Well, if they could have just gotten one more school in there, they would have been immune from the Catholic Memorial factor. But that's always been a factor. and there's other teams down there that could also be sent this way, and it would upset the Brown Deer. They've had a great run of athletes in the last few years. So
Wisconsin Lutheran. That's a team that you don't want to play right now.
As we go to Division 4, and we're just see here.
What's the earliest they've ever gotten the groups to us?
Well, again, last year
It was a different year.
last year was the first year of the current system where they didn't have to separate anybody.
Okay.
So you would think that it would come pretty swiftly here, but again, especially that it is the good part is they've had 1 year to do it. The bad part is they've only had 1 year to do it, and in the current format. And I'll admit, first of all, that I have not digested the entire formula for the divisional groupings, but again, my hunch is they need to try to balance the number of conference champions in each bracket, and that may take a while. Lodi in Division 4, Platteville, Broadhead, Judah. But I tell you, Platteville getting away from Lancaster has been the best thing ever, right, for the Hillmen? I mean, they get to the state finals a year ago, and it was kind of like tonight. They had their hands full with Lancaster, and Lancaster just showed what they're all about. But conference champs from this area: Broadhead, Judah, defined as a conference champ by virtue of their win in the tiebreaker over Bigfoot. Wautoma out of the South Central Conference, very weak conference this year, guys. I believe only 2 teams got in from the South Central. And those are the 2 big ones.
One thing to note, only
Interesting.
And Lodi.
Only 2 teams. And who'd Lodi lose to?
Wautoma.
Yeah.
Right. But last year they were in Division 3, and they were talking every time I was there, and I was there for soccer last night. Boy, if we could have been in 4 last year, we had to go in 3 and then meet Monroe Barneveld. Granted, it was a home game, but still in round 2, and they got knocked off. So you got to like their chances, especially the defense, the way they played down the stretch with Poynette and with Columbus.
The only 2 undefeated teams. Do you guys see Lodi getting a number 1 seed here? Potentially.
Well, you got conference champs unbeaten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know. Yeah, I think it got a shot at it. There's Wautoma, 5-0 conference champ. Saying, well, but we beat a 5-0 conference champ in Lodi.
Yeah.
So it might come down to that.
Yeah.
If they put them in the same bracket, Lodi gets a number 2 seed eventually.
Yeah.
All right.
I can't take those non-conference games for granted, right?
Yeah.
It comes back.
Not anymore. Not anymore. It'll be interesting. Division 5. The good news for Lancaster, Kewanee 6-3, 4-3 this year. They're not quite the juggernaut. Jason, going back over time, Kewanee and Lancaster has been one of those weird postseason rivalries that has gone both ways. One year it went all the way to the state final game, and there was a little controversy there. But
They always seem to play each other.
they always seem to play each other. It's a sign of 2 good programs. But and those are the ones the kind of games that jump out off the screen. Iola Scandinavia, not quite the record they've had in the past. Eau Claire Regis, a team to look for. They've had a great postseason history, although Division 5 is about as high as they've gone in a while, Denny.
Yeah.
They've gone as low as 7, and they've been usually a 6. And they're only 4 students away from being a 6 this year.
How about Stanley Boyd? They're there again.
Yeah, 8-0. So that you'd like to think that those would be schools that that teams around here wouldn't see till late in the postseason. But a Lancaster could run into an Arcadia, which beat Lancaster. There could be a rematch. That was the Lancaster's 1 loss this year in non-conference play was to Arcadia, and that would be one that you need to potentially keep an eye on, especially if they line up in the same bracket. But again, you've got Lancaster. The thing that may save, I don't know if it's going to save Lancaster. I don't think you'd like to, if there had been a second conference champion from the area here, you could have, put the two of them together, not Arcadia, but you might need to move Arcadia down here. 2, 4, 6, 7 conference champions in Division 5, identified conference champions, and 4 brackets.
Well, they put them in last year with Cambridge, because that's where Mike Clinton.
Oh, yep, there you go.
Mike mentioned it. Mike
Yeah.
Klingbeil last year said, as the head coach at Cambridge and the athletic director, he looked forward to the meeting and said they had a great time. All the coaches just really bonded well, and they had some great discussions. And he actually was hoping, in some ways, to see Lancaster again. I don't know if he wanted to see his team or he just wanted to see the coach.
Right. All right. Division 6, that's the one where who comes over? Oshkosh, Fond du Lac Springs, Lake Country Lutheran. All have had good runs in recent years. Lake Country Lutheran, a conference champ.
Fond du Lac Springs.
Boy.
They are again. Every year, aren't they?
Well, the one thing that might help Darlington is the fact that Deerfield's also conference champ, and you can only now you got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 to go in 4 groupings. My hunch is they would put the 2 conference champions that have losses with one of the unbeatens, and my hunch would be that it would be Lake Country Lutheran coming over this way versus Fond du Lac Springs, because they've done that more. It's usually been, and again, if Lake Country Lutheran is 1 and Darlington's 2, you're talking about not meeting until level 3. And then you would potentially meet a Fond du Lac Springs in level 4. But boy, what a loaded
at Middleton.
At Middleton again. Some of these you look at and you go, that's going to happen. But boy, that's just a great division there, because you've got some programs. I mean, Athens is experiencing. I'd have to go back and look, but. And Travis Wilson tweeting at us, and I've got the Twitter up now. So you can tweet at us at any of our hashtags, and so they Travis saying, remember, they don't split up conference champs, just conference champs that are unbeaten. Okay, that's good to know, Travis. I appreciate that. So
people are able to see us online right now.
We're open. Well,
It's
maybe
working.
not.
It's working.
It's working. Well, I just tweeted out the link. I'm not sure so. But so the first half hour may have been just us talking to each other, but it'll be on the archive. So that's good to know. I mean, but on the one hand, on the other hand, it really penalizes, Dennis, the teams that schedule hard in non-conference play. I mean, seriously, Darlington plays that Platteville game every year, and 8 times out of 10 they lose it, and now this year they're going to pay a penalty because they won't be separated potentially from an unbeaten conference champ. Wow.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Still nothing yet on the brackets, though, right, guys?
No, just refresh again. Now I'm still blank for the groupings.
Okay. Well, we'll continue just to hold watch here. We'll probably go to 1 a.m. and just test the waters here.
Here's a nice tweet, Rob. Shout out to Milton football. Hell of a job. AJ Natter.
Wow.
Nebraska.
Out of Nebraska. Yep.
Yep. Taking care of his boys tonight.
Well, I got it. We'll maybe while we have a minute here, we'll talk about some of the things that did go on tonight. I got to open the paper here, and there's so. What's that?
Yep, we already got paper.
Yeah, we already got papers out here, so you can get a look at what's going to be on the newsstand tomorrow. I better make sure that I see exactly what we're looking at here. But this Milton deal here with Dylan Swerig, 48-yard field goal with 8 seconds left in regulation to force overtime. I got a tweet from Andrea Whelan, the Milton girls golf coach. The kicker from Milton is one of her husband's golfers, Kirk. Her husband coaches the boys team, and Travis. They split up conference champs that are unbeaten in conference play. Good to know. That helps. That helps the Darlington. Can you tell Travis I'm trying to give the Darlington fans something to cling to here?
It's just too confusing.
It is.
We should just go to how it is in Alabama, where I'm from.
Well, you're now in a position of power here and influence, Jason, where you can make that happen. And I don't know if Travis is a big district guy. I like the district plan. I think we were kind of divided on it. But going back to Dylan Swearing, Andrea says that he struggles hitting greens from 48 yards, but god darn it, he can kick a football through it upright with 8 seconds left in regulation. And of course, the quarterback Tyler Westrick scores on a bootleg in the first possession of overtime, and then the Hawks stone MG on their defensive possession, and they win and get a share of that title. We mentioned earlier Middleton, with as the headline says, leaves little doubt, 41-0 over Craig. But we'll get to some of those games here in a second.
Yeah, one other update here. J.R. Radcliffe. Homestead holds off Whitefish Bay. Now has a staggering 14 straight years of at least sharing the North Shore title. There's a program that you got to take into consideration when you put them in where you put them in postseason.
And where did we put them in postseason, Denny? They're in 2.
They're in 2. Right.
Right up there with Brookfield Central. Yeah, that's the thing. Division 2. We talked about the enrollment range in Division 3 being pretty intense. It's not 2-1 in Division 2, but it's
9 teams with 1 loss or less in Division 2.
Well, and the thing that stands out is that you've got some Greater Metro, and you've got some Classic 8. Waukesha West could be a team that comes over Madison's way, depending on how they break it down. And God, I'd love to stay up and be live on the tee on this thing when those groupings come out.
Yeah, a shout out to Stoughton, Rob. Guess what? Second time ever in the playoffs.
That's right.
3-6, 3-3. That was one of those that we were going on they're playoff eligible. The playoff eligible couldn't win out the last 2 weeks to get that one, but they still made it. So congrats to the boys.
I also needed to bring up here. We joked about it on the live chat today that Monroe would have been a qualifier in the Northern Badger because they beat 3 of the teams that are in there. They would have had a 3-3 conference record, but they win their first conference game tonight, 35-28 over Fort Atkinson. Cody Wolf, 349 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns. And
the way you open the season.
Yeah, and so they Monroe closes on a positive note, but 4 qualifiers out of the Badger South out of the 7 teams, and 4 out of the North. So the Badger will be well represented this year, and I think with good competitive teams. I mean, Stoughton gets in at 3-6, Dennis, but their losses have been largely quality losses. 3 teams ahead of them in the standings in the Badger South, and then obviously
tough one. Yeah, tonight 33-14 to Edgewood, and sounded like Steve Arado said that East was trying to get a 10th game and against Edgewood. So 2 teams didn't make the playoffs.
Boy,
I'd love to see that from an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, exactly, and of course East tonight puts a scare into in the Sun Prairie. Was it
35-28?
35-28.
Scored some more points. But
yeah. Well, that's interesting there.
Like I mentioned to you guys earlier, before we were on, 6 of East 8 losses this year by 1 score. So.
How about that? And and I don't want to open a can of worms here, but the thought, Jason, from time to time, you hear people talking about an all-inclusive playoff and reducing the regular season by 1 game. I don't think in the current system it would change anything for East. It might be one and done, but at least they'd be in, and especially if they would be able to go up against somebody other than a Big 8 team that they kind of have this preconceived notion it might go one way or the other. That would be kind of fun.
I don't like that idea.
You don't like that idea?
I do not like that idea. I mean, what's the point of playing a regular season if you're going to let everybody in?
Well,
I'm sure it's
and we wouldn't be here sitting in front of a webcam if everybody were in the playoffs. Good point.
It's like, well, you guys lost again, but
I'd
don't worry.
Get some sleep before that.
We got
7 a.m. trip to Beloit.
Cross country. So we for Dennis's sake, we may not last until the bitter end.
Be an 8-game preseason.
And Jordan Chester from Madison East, we welcome him to the on Twitter. He said the Sun Prairie game did come down to the last play, and again for Madison East. I tell you, the Big 8 looks really good in coming years with the level of coaching that's in there right now, and what some of these and you asked about Memorial losing a chance tonight to Verona, and it was a 7-0 game at halftime, and they were moving on Memorial. I think the tools are in the box at Memorial, and I said that from the get-go. I was a big Madison Memorial fan from day one because of what they had done at the under levels, but for whatever reason, the chemistry just didn't gel, and tonight when and we've heard this is the first time I've seen Memorial, but we've heard about the whole quarterback deal with Henry Howden and Emmett Enright. When Howden went out to a flanker or a tight end or whatever, he went out on the wing, and Enright came in and started throwing to him. That was when they were at their best. Unfortunately, they were down a lot by that point, and
I think you were the last person off the Memorial bandwagon, right?
I was the last. I thought they could still win tonight and get in the playoffs.
I mean,
for Pete's sake. And it would have been, again, that would have been nice to see because they are very explosive. And if they got shipped to the, right matchup, it could be a different story. But they just didn't have the late season, karma or mojo that Verona did, or Middleton after their early loss, Madison LaFollette with the exception of the Verona game. So they kind of made their bed there in that situation.
Three family names to think about: Andringa, history, WIAA, and Ferguson.
Oh, I tell you what, Jake Ferguson was a menace on both sides of the ball tonight, and I think he punted too, if I'm not mistaken. And so he is Mr. Versatility, and again, I think it does say a lot that Verona was able to get that game to a running clock, and they do go in on some positive energy.
How about that last year, two coaches in the Hall of Fame, Dave Richardson, Verona, and Pat Rice, Wanakee. Dave didn't make it to the playoffs. Pat barely did. Both definitely rebound years, and as they say, a little glitch. You can't control. You can't recruit, right?
Right.
You can't redshirt guys. But those are two very strong programs, and this year back there. So we were saying last year, you better get them while they're down. And 0-3 start, lesser programs would have folded at that point. And Wanakee, again, with some big wins down the stretch, 4-2 in the conference, going solid.
Yeah, and 7-2 overall. So again, you wouldn't want to play them. Division, we got down to Division 6, then I kind of took us on a different road here. But I don't know. Typically, you see that in Division 7. The Six Rivers schools matching up with Ridge and Valley and Trailways schools, and I think that would be the case again. You could see, for example, Cambria Friesland was the conference champ by beating Rio tonight, and so you might see them play a Schulzberg or a Belmont even. I think Blackhawks, the dangerous team, they're the state champion from a year ago with a great quarterback, but they'll have
a tougher road this year, I believe.
You would think so.
Number one seed again.
No, that you would think so. But look at what's not there, Dennis. Well, actually, what's not there is Lake Country Lutheran. However, look what is there: Burlington Catholic Central up there, third largest school, coming in at 7-2. That could be the one that, again, ends the season for a lot of local clubs if they get shipped over this way. And quite frankly, there aren't a whole lot of schools over in the Milwaukee area, so I'd be stunned if they weren't.
Well, Blackhawk last year took it away from Potosi. Potosi right back at top of the conference this year. How many titles is that in the last? Is that 5 and 6, 6 and 7, something like that around?
For Potosi?
For Potosi.
Yeah. Yep. No.
Very strong.
Yeah, and it was a pretty balanced league there too. So, again, so much hinging on these regional groupings, but so many. What could happen is, if they go north and south with the Six Rivers, the Ridge and Valley, and the Scenic Bluffs, that could be interesting. But they're going to have to try to get the Scenic Bluff schools up to that Eau Claire area, is my guess, and then maybe the Ridge and Valley Six Rivers down here. But it's Division 7 might be as challenging as Division 1 for different reasons, because geographically, you've got clusters of Division 7 schools, and with 8-man football, I think you've got fewer options even, and you could have a whole bracket full of Six Rivers and Ridge and Valley teams, and I don't think that would be in the best interest of the playoffs. Neither of those two conferences sent a team to state since DeSoto's runs, way back when. I don't think so, but
maybe Division 7 will be the 8-man football.
That will be
division
within 5 years. I bet you it will be.
Eventually, you would think so, and that'll be something to keep an eye on. But Well, before we call it a night here, and we'd like to stay up and give you those brackets, but you've got state tennis tomorrow. You've got a conference cross-country meet. I'm still trying to figure out if I'm going to head over to the Badger meet or not with a few phone problems. But any other thoughts on tonight's games as we look at what happened? I guess highlights, Middleton knocks off Craig in convincing fashion to secure the Big 8 conference title. But I guess the one eye-opener was Parker beating West tonight.
That was an eye-opener. It was interesting because, Parker didn't have anything to play for besides pride. And I guess you could argue West didn't either since they had already clinched a playoff berth. But I thought that was a very interesting result. And you got to wonder, West has kind of become this Jekyll and Hyde team a little bit. They beat Craig last week. They have some really big wins this year. They nearly beat La Follette on the road early in the season. And then they have a game like tonight where they lose against Parker. So it'll be interesting to see, how they fare in the playoffs. They'll probably be a fairly low seed playing. There's a chance they get La Follette again. As a 7-2 matchup, and that would be really interesting because West was one play away from winning that game early in the season.
Yeah, interesting. The strongest West finished at the end of the season. They were up 13-12, didn't score in the second half. Got beat on a fourth quarter touchdown, so that's a little bit of a surprise. Out of anything, they would have pulled away in that game in the fourth quarter. Maybe they're just, some teams, you run out of gas a little bit at the end. Just like Craig, emotionally, is out of gas right now, losing starting quarterback.
Again, Mount Horeb-Barneveld earns a title share tonight with the win over Sauk Prairie DeForest, which was in a crossover mode with Oregon. They beat the Panthers, by the way, 19-13, and a good quality win to go in the postseason for Mike Minnick's crew. But no real surprises in the Badger. The play-in game potentially for Baraboo didn't go nearly with the way they wanted it. They lose 41-12 to Wanakee, but they came close. They were playing for playoffs in Week 9.
A home game for Wanakee after getting the streak snapped last year. They're a little angry here. They lost 2 years in a row to DeForest, 2 years in a row to Mount Horeb-Barneveld, and stopped it right there with Reedsburg. Got them and now into the playoffs on hot streak.
Badger South, of course, the big game. Milton getting the big field goal with 8 seconds left from Swearig. And then Westrick's touchdown run in overtime. They beat Monona Grove 10-3. Oregon finishes one back, but we knew that going into the night. And Stoughton loses, as Dennis said earlier, to Madison Edgewood 33-14. And good to see Edgewood finish on a positive note. Tough year for Al Minnick's club. One of the few years that we've covered high school football, they haven't been in some sort of postseason.
Yes, and they had some good individual players, skilled players, but again, when you have only 23 juniors and seniors to open the season, attrition kind of took its toll.
Yeah, as bad as the season was, they won one conference win for the playoffs, so they weren't too far off. Won 3 of their last 4 games.
There you go. Something we'll build on for next year. Should mention too the Darlington game this afternoon, 48-0. But the big story at halftime, they announced that they were going to make a push to have lights installed, $150,000. I know, Jason, you were looking into this story during the week. Wadsey Martins, the longtime coach at Darlington for decades down there, kind of started the program. His son kickstarted the campaign with a $50,000 donation. Tom was there today to do that, and if all goes according to plan, talking to Kurt Cohn, the athletic director at Darlington, when New Glarus comes to town in Week 2 next year, if they can get the money raised by May 1st, the contractor said that they can have the lights installed up and running by that game, and what a difference that'll be for Darlington.
Interesting, it would be a huge difference. The interesting part about this is I've heard some of the locals kind of see the afternoon games as a tradition that they never want to end. They've been having them for 100 years or however long, and some people think Wadsey would be turning over in his grave right now.
His son alluded to that, and it was a very eloquent halftime presentation. Doug MacArthur, the former coach and current principal at Darlington, led it, and then brought Tom Martins out to talk, and he admitted, he said his dad would not have liked the idea of lights, but the other thing Wadsey Martins wouldn't have liked down at Darlington was walking into the season finale with a team about to clinch an unbeaten conference season in seeing the stands half full, even though the weather wasn't entirely great. Times have changed down there in Darlington, and more than in just football. I mean, it's just the demographics of well, everybody. I mean, it's not just Darlington. It's
Wrigley eventually had to get lights too,
Yeah.
right? For all the Cub fans in this area.
And I think it's part of it is that that the time has come where the crowds that the kids were playing with when there weren't lights, when Wadsey Martins was coaching, were much greater than they are right now. And if one parent can't go to the game because they've got to work, if they have a week's vacation and you've got 5 home games and you're going to spend the bulk of that vacation and taking off to watch your kid play, I mean, at some point you got to ask yourself, is it worth it?
I'm glad he presented it that way because I think people should look at it that way instead of just this is this tradition that we shouldn't change because they still got to raise $50,000 and if the locals aren't on board with this, then that's going to be really difficult.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really good thing for them if they're able to do it.
Well, and we'll see. Again, May 1st, the deadline, and there is a story in our paper here this morning that details how you can donate to the project for those that are interested. The Redbird Touchdown Club. Alex Erickson, the Badger, was in attendance. His brother Brett played his final home game as a senior, regular season home game. And Alex was there to watch. I noticed on Twitter that the Trotter brothers were down at Milwaukee Marquette tonight. So the Badger players taking advantage of the bye week to go back home and check out some high school football. We mentioned earlier Lancaster, a 50-20 winner over Platteville. The Flying Arrows fly to the playoffs with a 9-1 record. I'm sorry, a 7-1. It should be an 8-1 record and an undefeated conference season there. Broadhead Judah ends the long 53-game conference winning streak by Walworth Bigfoot. 2 conference winning streaks, Dennis.
38 games in a row from Monona Grove. They were going for a 6th consecutive unbeaten conference title. They got their 6th title, but they got to share it.
And so that was a big one. We mentioned earlier Evansville, Albany, Blanks, McFarland to share the conference title with Jefferson. And we also mentioned during our rundown of the divisions that Cambria-Friesland did beat Rio to win the conference title there. Trying to think, do we miss any? Ithaca blanked Kickapoo-Lafarge to win the Ridge and Valley Conference title. Just a few of the big games around the area. And
Cambridge getting their
That's right.
disputed title quite easily. You look from the final score, 36-0 over Waterloo. A little bit of a surprise there.
I'm just looking here at the scores. I didn't realize River Ridge beat Peck Argyle tonight. And so Peck Argyle a week ago had a chance to, after coming off an emotional 40-0 trouncing a Blackhawk on Blackhawks homecoming, they lose 2 in a row to end the regular season. That's kind of strange turn of events. But guys, it is high school football, and those kind of things do happen, and they happen in the postseason, which is where we're headed next. Any final thought? We're still not anywhere close to those groupings, are we?
Well, we could be a second away. We could be 30 minutes away. Who knows?
All right. Anything else to add?
Nap attack. Get right back at it. 11 o'clock the meetings. 1 o'clock we should have some good news where you're going to go. Somebody asked me today about is there a chance for a number 1 seed not to host? Well, the WIAA has a list of pre-approved sites, and if they're not on it, but I think that's primarily schools don't go on it if they don't think they're going to make the playoffs and they want to host for somebody else. But football's a moneymaker like basketball, so you want to keep those seasons going as long as you can.
And maybe we'll wind it down with some of these thoughts, but again, I've been just crowing about the Sun Prairie turnout last week, Jason, at that game with Verona. And with the results being what they are tonight, even Sun Prairie, I think, stands a chance of hosting a first-round game, and that would be, a good moneymaker for the WIAA because they certainly know how to pack a football stadium.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Any extra games are good.
Yeah, just some of the stadiums around here, Sun Prairie, Ashley Field, that just with the fans right on top of you, and maybe the opposing team doesn't like it quite as much. Rob, you're in that position.
Actually, my wife said it was one of the best stadiums she's been in because she felt so close to the action. So, and I think again, though it is, it's kind of throwback football to basically pee-wee ball where you got a few sets of bleachers on that visiting side, but it's almost shades of the lawn chair, camping chair days of watching flag football. But on that one side, and on the other side with that bowl effect, And wow, what a huge.
And was this Sun Prairie's?
I was just thinking
big
of
win
that.
tonight.
That's
500th.
Yeah.
500th win
Between
tonight.
between the last 3 coaches,
That's right.
not 500th overall. I don't believe.
Well, I don't know. What is that? Oh, is that
I
what?
believe it's just between the last
Okay.
3 coaches
Gotcha.
who had extended tenures with the school.
Okay. All right. Well, we will. But they get to put that 500 sign up, and
Yeah,
that'll be good.
Verona kind of spoiled that.
Spoiled-
last
Yeah,
year.
we won't go
Just,
there. We won't go there.
Were they on the road this?
Verona was on the road again, or
I mean, I'm sorry, Sun Prairie.
Sun Prairie was. That's a good question.
Oh, by the way,
Yes, I was thinking.
I think they were at.
belated birthday to Bob Vitens.
Ladies,
Just had a birthday after being honored last week for his service as a longtime statistician.
Yep. Losers. They played at Loser tonight for Sun Prairie East. So.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Verona really ruined that. They
Well,
would do it at home.
well,
tear
now
it
they'll
inside.
maybe get a playoff game at home, and they can do it there. I can only hope. We didn't
That'll
mean
be
to
5-1
spoil
though.
anything. We
They
needed to.
travel well.
Verona needed a win to get in the playoffs, for gosh sakes. Well, I tell you what, if Jason Galloway is not going to give me a playoff groupings here, half hour early, we're going to
I'll just,
assume that the WIAA is going to continue to deliberate right up until
I'll just
1:30.
make them up.
There you go. Jason Galloway is going to make up the playoff groupings tonight. Maybe run them by Travis Wilson, and then I tell you what, Travis got a lot of love at the Verona game tonight. A lot of people feel he is the Joe Lenardi now of high school bracketology. So for getting that, he was pretty much spot on with a lot of these playoff projections.
Travis,
And,
take a nap. He'll be right back.
oh, there's
at
no
it.
napping for Travis this time of year. Well, I tell you what, folks. With that, we're going to wrap it up. But these guys get home and get ready for what do we got left in state tennis tomorrow, Jason? Anything?
We have 3 still alive for
Really?
titles. We have Maddie Molitor, Edgewood,
Okay.
who upset. She came in unseeded, upset the 4th and 5th seeds.
Really?
Today, and then Wanakee pair of Bailey Chorney and
Bobby Stricker.
Bobby Stricker, Steve
Okay.
Stricker's daughter. They had a couple upsets too. They were the 10th seed and they're in the semifinals now.
Wow.
And then doubles team from Bigfoot Williams Bay also in the semis. So
You got some work to do
they
tomorrow.
got some work tomorrow.
Okay. And Dennis, you're off to Badger or Big 8 Conference
Big
cross
Eight
country
Conference.
somewhere in Beloit.
Yeah, in Beloit, right?
You ever been there?
Olin Hacker, nobody that I talked to, any of the teams said they've ever run there before. So we're just hoping we show up at the right place. But Olin Hacker defending his individual title. Madison LaFollette ranked #1 in the state, looking to win the conference, and with West right there. And then the girls, you could legitimately win the Big 8 Conference and not get to state because there are 4 teams: Madison Memorial, Sun Prairie, Middleton, and Madison West, all right in the thick of it. Katie Hypus from Sun Prairie, defending girls champ, is back
Okay.
again. So it should be a fun day.
All right. Well, with that, we thank you for joining us here on WisconsinPrepZone.com, Madison.com, on our live broadcast. If you're watching replay, if you got to this point, you're better than we are. So,
not watching this.
You're not watching the whole thing? I can't believe it yet. You're going to send
I
it
was
to your folks and relatives, but we'll have our prep rally next week from a site to be determined, and break down the playoff field. It might be a little bit extended version there. A lot to talk about as we look ahead to the postseason with as many local teams that got in, especially from the Big 8, the Badger, the Capital Conference. So we'll do that all next week. But for now, there you go. The playoff groupings are out. And I'm sorry, the playoff field is out. We await the groupings, and of course tomorrow at 11 a.m. the coaches will seed their groupings, and we should know by 1 o'clock who's playing who, where, and when. And again, Friday the preferred day for playoff football in the WIAA this postseason. For Jason Galloway and Dennis Semrau, I'm Rob Hernandez. Thanks for watching our Prep Rally Live playoff edition from the State Journal Newsroom. See you at the stadium.